welcome to Bold and Blunt, and I'm your host, Cheryl Johnson, a Christian conservative view of today's news, politics, culture, and events. Today's topic, the new woke corporate culture. What's going on? What's going on behind the scenes? And how do we stop it? That's going to be the topic of discussion today, and I have a great guest, Charles Mizrahi. He's the editor of Alpha Investor. That's a newsletter with more than 200,000 subscribers that seek out his financial insights. And that's because he used to be on Wall Street, but he left Wall Street to teach people how to invest and to host his own podcast on finances. So Charles Mizrahi, he'll be up in a few minutes. Before I get to that, just a quick heads up. If you are not a regular subscriber to the Washington Times, first off, why not? I mean, the Washington Times is a great news source. Why? Because it gives you the news that the other media outlets won't give you. It gives you the news where other media outlets fear to tread. So if you want to know what's going on with the Joe Biden administration and all the socialist infusion through the White House, don't look to CNN or the Washington Post or the New York Times to get the truth. You need a source that's trusted, that's reputable, and that has been in the business of investigative reporting for decades, and that is the Washington Times. So right now, for Bold and Blunt listeners, the Washington Times is offering a 50% discount for a year's access to the digital platform of the Washington Times. Go to WashingtonTimes.com/Cheryl, type in your info, and then you'll have a year's access to all the Washington Times offers on its digital platform. That's the news, that's great commentaries, and that's great podcasts like Bold and Blunt. And while you're at it, please check out on the WashingtonTimes.com website, my name, click on the link, and sign up for my 3 times a week newsletter. You'll get delivered to your inbox all the talking points you need by way of my daily commentaries to refute that far leftist aunt you have who's coming to your July 4th barbecue, whether you want her there or not, right? She's the one wearing 6 face masks. So quick, sign up to my 3 times a week newsletter, and in addition, you will also get delivered right to your email box my twice weekly Bold and Blunt podcasts. So that's the pitch. Hope you take advantage, because you know what? The Washington Times is one of the very, very few scarce outlets out there that is offering you the news you need in this propaganda-filled atmosphere, which includes, sadly, these days, corporations. What is going on with corporations? A headline just this week from the New York Post. Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio slam corporate America for woke leanings. Leanings. There's an understatement. You've got corporations in this nation just fighting to be the top dog when it comes to the list of far leftist companies in America. Look at what Coca-Cola and PepsiCo are doing. These two giants are battling it out in America right now, not to become the best-known soda brand, not to bring in the most revenues for the shareholders and the employees and the CEOs, not to have bragging rights on having the longest-lasting, top-listed soda in America. Nothing like that. These two companies are battling it out to see who gets most rewarded by way of media recognition for giving the most money to Black Lives Matter causes, to bolster minority causes in America, to basically put the money behind the mouth of the Black Lives Matter movement. Check out their websites. It's not about their product. It's not about the hard work of their employees. It's about all the money and causes that they are doing for the Black Lives Matter type movement. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy enough that people are sick and tired of it. And some have said, I'm not going to buy Coke products anymore. Okay, so then you go to Pepsi. But check out Pepsi's website. It's just the same. And then these same people say, well, I'm not going to buy Pepsi anymore. Well, you know what? it's getting really hard to find a company in America with a known product that is in business simply to make money and keeps its nose out of politics. Seriously. So, what's going on here, right? Where did this start? Where are we headed with it? And was this sort of a grassroots movement, you think? Or do you think, like I do, that it's something that started from a dark political corner of the globalist world? Yes, that's where it started. Listen to this.
The COVID-19 crisis has shown us that our old systems are not fit anymore for the 21st century. It has laid bare the fundamental lack of social cohesion, fairness, inclusion, and equality. In short, we need a great reset.
A great reset, right? You've heard the term. You've heard the term along with Build Back Better, which has been ushered from Joe Biden's mouth several times. You've heard the term, but maybe you've bought into the far left media lie. Again, another reason why you need an outlet like the Washington Times on your regular read list. But you've heard the term, and maybe you've been caught up in the far left lie that, whoa, this is a conspiracy theory. This is crazy. This is tinfoil hat conservatives, QAnon, that kind of group. Well, think again, because a great reset, the Great Reset, is right there for your reading on the World Economic Forum's website. Go to it and read it yourself. As a matter of fact, the video, the guy talking that I just played you, that was Klaus Schwab, and he is the founder of the World Economic Forum, and he was making this speech in August of last year at a public setting, right? This is at a World Economic Forum sponsored setting. So let's be clear on this. There is no secret about the Great Reset. There's absolutely no secret conspiratorial behind scenes plot. That's the stuff of a major Hollywood drama starring Tom Cruise. It's not a Tom Clancy novel, okay? This is real. And if you don't believe me, I implore you, go to WEF.org or type in Bing or Google, whichever search engine you use, The Great Reset World Economic Forum. So, what is it? What is the Great Reset? Well, in essence, it's a redefining of capitalism. What it does is it takes out of the free market world the goal of making money for the investors, making money for the board, making money for the employees, making money for the CEO. And it puts as a higher priority doing good for what is now called stakeholders. And stakeholders sounds like just a nothing term. Yeah, stakeholders. We gotta please our stakeholders. We gotta make a buck for our stakeholders. Except stakeholders can be the neighbors next door to a corporation. They can be people in the environmental movement. Those are stakeholders. They have a stake in a corporate's direction, in a corporate's growth. They have a vested interest in how a corporation builds and constructs and grows and makes revenues. So all of a sudden, you have companies in America that instead of being in it for the buck, which is the pure capitalistic system, right? You're in it for the most part to make money. Yes, you can have other altruistic type of goals, but if you don't make money, your altruistic goals go to the wayside because your business dies. So the number one priority of any free market enterprise is to generate revenues. You have to. That's how a company lives. You got to pay the bills. You got to pay the employees. You got to pay the contractors or whoever you do business with. You got to pay them. We don't live in a world of unicorns and daisies and things like that. We live in a world where the economy is run by money. So the number one goal in America for free market is supposed to be to make money. That's pure. That's simple. And It's a tangible show of success versus failure. Now here comes Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum and his Great Reset with his sort of swapping out of shareholder interests, right? The shareholders, to stakeholder interests. And all of a sudden, instead of making money, there are many, many, many interests of a corporation because there are many, many, many stakeholders. As I said, a stakeholder can be defined as an environmentalist. A stakeholder can be defined as a group dedicated to advancing the civil rights causes of minorities, say Black Lives Matter. These are all stakeholders because if you go on the theory that capitalism is a system that discriminates against those who have not in favor of those who have, and if you live with the idea that fat cat capitalists, as Barack Obama liked to call them, are evil, and they didn't build that, everybody did, then everybody deserves a piece of the corporate pie, right? You see how that works then. If you didn't build that, if you didn't create that, if you didn't construct that, if everybody had a stake in helping you build and create and construct, well then, it's only fair. Everybody deserves a piece of the pie that you make from that collective creation, production, and so forth. This is the stakeholder method of capitalism, and it's pure evil because what it does in America is it flips capitalism for socialism, and it does it in a way that you're not supposed to notice. You're not supposed to notice the difference between shareholders, which are people who invest in a company and have a vested financial interest in a company and therefore have assumed some of the risk of that company's success or failure. That's shareholder. You're not supposed to notice the difference between shareholder and stakeholder, which is anybody and everybody, which in this world of socialism really means anybody and everybody who's far left, who's a far left globalist collectivist, just like Klaus Schwab.
We have a choice to remain passive, which would lead to the amplification of many of the trends we see today. Polarization, nationalism, racism, and ultimately increased social unrest and conflicts. But we have another choice. We can build a new social contract, particularly integrating the next generation. We can change our behavior to be in harmony with nature again. And we can make sure that the technologies of the fourth industrial revolution are best utilized to provide us with better lives.
We can change our behavior to be in harmony with nature again. Did you catch that? I know the accent's a little thick. He's German. So what does he mean by that? We can change our behavior to be in harmony with nature again. Well, what he means by that is that the few select globalist pinheads at the top, the lucky few, like him and his friends, get to dictate to the rest of us peons in the world how our behavior must go forward in line with what he and his pinhead friends envision as a fairer economy for all. And look, tied closely to this Great Reset is environmentalism, because the coronavirus is the platform to bring this Great Reset into motion. If you recall the first clip I played from Mr. Schwab, he talked about the Great Reset based on the coronavirus, giving the opportunity, right? Everybody's shut down. Everybody is in chaos. Everybody's wearing face masks, 6 face masks, 8 face masks, whatever. Everybody is in fear is basically what it is. So the governments of the world have created an atmosphere of fear some based on realistic unknowns about the coronavirus, but very, very quickly after, some based on the despotic nature of the left and their need to control and take over. So they are using this coronavirus for a political tool to bring about the Great Reset. And now, to keep the Great Reset going, it's the environmentalism, it's the environmental movement. Go to World Economic Forum again and look at all the environmental regulatory clampdowns they have planned and redistributions of wealth they have in motion in the coming days, weeks, months, even years. And this is how the Great Reset of capitalism, of the economies of the world, is going to be ultimately achieved. So, believe what you want, don't believe what you want. But here's the thing. If you want to know where this woke capitalism in America is coming from, go back in time a little bit farther than or further than August 2020 to mid-2019 when the U.S. Business Roundtable 181 corporate chiefs signed on to a new corporate mission. And this new corporate mission, which basically outlines what their reason for being in the corporate world is all about, this new reason for being does not emphasize profit, does not emphasize revenues, does not emphasize even job creation. What it emphasizes, once again, is stakeholder interests. It talks about spreading the corporate mission to include all the stakeholders now, not just the shareholders, not just those fat cat pig shareholders that are only in it to make gasp money, but all the stakeholders. All the stakeholders like Black Lives Matter and Antifa and the environmental movement, the Sierra Club and the World Wildlife Fund or whatever it's called, and all the far leftists of the world. They are the stakeholders now. And what, like I said, 181 corporate executives signed on to this new redefining of their mission, which happily, coincidentally, is in line with what the Great Reset movement is all about at the World Economic Forum. So, this isn't just a grassroots movement, a sign of the times, where companies have just decided out of their own moral compass, somehow, some way, they must repay blacks for slavery decades ago in this nation. This is not just a heartfelt, genuine reach out to minority interests in America, where businesses sincerely, genuinely, and humbly want to pour money into far left, socialist, collectivist causes. No, this is a top-down strategy, and it is killing America's free market system. Because it'll get to the point soon enough where American citizens don't know where to buy, don't know who to buy from. You know why? Because all the businesses will be in on this new stakeholder type form of capitalism. We'll have, every time we turn on the TV, we'll be inundated with ads from all these woke corporations preaching to us and finger pointing at us and wagging their heads and scolding us into behaving in certain ways, like Klaus Schwab said, a new behavior pattern for humanity. And suddenly, any purchase we make will be funding this. Will be funding this far leftist, Marxist, socialist, collectivist, whatever you want to call it, top-down kill of capitalism. So, what do we do about it, right? Charles Mizrahi, hopefully, has some solutions. So I want to thank you, Charles, for being on Bold and Blunt. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, my pleasure, Cheryl.
So let's talk about corporate wokeness, right? Americans hate it. Americans do hate it. Polls show they do. And yet corporations keep doing it. Why is that?
Well, I think CEOs are making a decision based on the lesser of two evils. So I don't think these CEOs wake up in the morning and say, we're all for wokeism. They basically make a financial decision. Is it is it less harmful to us to go with wokeism and do all this silliness and listen to the mob and basically cave in, or stand up against them and be on the end of social media, boycotts, and a whole bunch of other stuff that'll disrupt their business? And that's how I think they're making the decision.
Well, you're a financial guy, so you follow the markets. That's your background, that's your present. So, have you seen any financial dings to these loud companies that are pointing fingers at Americans and scolding us for doing things that they think are morally wrong?
No, in fact, they're doing pretty well. You look at Facebook or Google or even Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
The market's doing well. The companies are doing well. The profits are up. Revenue is up. So it's a sunny day.
So these executives think that Americans will actually reward them financially with more consumerism by taking this woke route.
I think I would say in the opposite. I would say there's less of a risk by going with the woke route than standing up against it.
Gotcha.
So, it's not something, I think there's a misconception. Corporations are after one thing, or should be after one thing, and that's increasing shareholder value. And the way to do that is basically to increase your market share, increase your sales, increase your earnings, run an efficient ship, and so on and so forth. So wokeism is having its day because it's bullyism. And for a bully to be emboldened, all one has to do is be silent. And that's what I think is happening. I think corporations and consumers are more or less being silent about this and letting bullyism expand, get emboldened, and win the day.
You bring up a good point about what businesses are supposed to be in business for, basically make money for their shareholders. But are you aware of the World Economic Forum and the Great Reset and how they are sticking their fingers into the capitalistic system to make it more about a moral compass that companies are in business for than revenues and profits?
Yeah, they're trying, but it might take some traction in Europe. But in America, I over the long term, I see this just as a passing fad. I don't see many companies going that way. And it really runs contrary to what they're supposed to be in business to do. And that's to, as I mentioned, increase market share, sell more products and services. And all these things are basically distractions.
I am really glad to hear you say that you don't think that Great Reset nonsense is going to gain ground in America, because if it did, that would pretty much cripple capitalism, wouldn't it?
Yeah, you said the right word, nonsense. And Americans are smart people. No one ever made money underestimating the intelligence of the American people. No one ever made money shorting America. And it's not going to start now. This is a passing phase. It's like McCarthyism 2.0. It'll have its day in the sun, and there'll be that turning point like it was in June of 1954 when an attorney for the Army, Welch, said to McCarthy, have you no decency? And it just came crumbling down, and McCarthy ended up a drunk, and that was the end of his life. It's going to happen to wokeism because we don't tolerate bullies. And you mentioned earlier that there are polls showing Americans don't tolerate this, and the majority of them don't. And what's going to happen is there is going to be a tipping point. Wokeism is going to push too far, or something might happen, and I don't know what that event is or when that event will happen, but something will spark a backlash.
I agree with you there on the tipping point. I think it has to happen. But to be honest, as an American citizen who cherishes individual liberties, I would have thought that point of tipping would have happened a year ago. But here I am still waiting.
Yeah, because nothing really happened in your life, right? So what happened? Was there, if you didn't want to buy Coke, you could buy Pepsi. Maybe you weren't attacked personally. Maybe there wasn't enough wokeism that upset anyone's life to the point where the stock price fell or the company lost its valuation or consumers didn't have a certain product. But that can happen. So America is going to go on. The business of America is business. We're going to keep going on where the economy is doing very well. This is before President Biden taking any credit for that. It was set up to do well prior to all the stimulus and all of this government intervention of $6 trillion into a system which makes no sense in the world. And it's going to continue going well until it doesn't. And when it doesn't, that'll be the tipping point. When that'll happen, I don't have a crystal ball. But Americans will, at some point, realize that there is going to be an event, a situation, or something where it's so obvious we'll look back in history and say, that was it.
Do you think Americans will take revenge on some of these louder companies? For instance, Coke and Pepsi right now battling it out to be the top dog on the list of donating to Black Lives Matter causes and the like. Do you think consumers will remember after the tipping point the loudest, morally superior type corporations?
Well, let's be real about this. Let's take a reality check. If someone likes Coke or someone likes Pepsi products, and there are tons of products, snacks, for example, Fritos, if they like their Frito-Lays and with their Diet Coke, I don't know, is this enough for Americans to say, you know, I'm going to go to some off-brand or Walmart Cola? I doubt that. So we saw that with Amazon, you know, we saw that with Facebook. So their revenues didn't drop in terms of advertising and marketing. Their companies are doing extremely, extremely well. You have a choice as an American. You can support a certain company or a certain product, or you don't have to. That's the choice that consumers have. Revenge, I don't know. These products and these systems of getting something delivered in one day, because I'm in New York, or 2 days if you're the rest of the country with Amazon Prime. Well, boy, that is a big convenience to my life.
Yeah, these titans will come out okay, I have a feeling. But let me go back to your optimism that a tipping point is coming and things will go back to normal in the corporate world, back to more sane times. What about the youth of America, the youth of America that has grown up told that their feelings matter more than anything and that when they're offended, other people have to act? These are the people who are coming into the strong buying times of years. Do you think that's going to factor into the tipping point being booted down the line a ways?
Well, that's such a great question. I don't know. I really don't know. What one does with their purchasing power of the dollar and going to buy things, that we'll have to see. Will it happen? Well, it should be happening now. Conservatives have left the university campuses, the college campuses for the past 50 years. We leftists have filled that vacuum, and they've done an outstanding job spreading socialism, leftism, communism, and any other ism that's against the United States. And that's not on them. That's on conservatives. We walked away, so they did a fantastic job of filling that void and filling our children's heads with silliness and what should be on the ash heap of history. Now, at this point, will there be a tipping point? You ask a good question. Will there be a tipping point because of this? I don't think so. I don't think we've seen one so far, and I think we're just seeing a very loud and vocal mob, minority. Most Americans don't feel this way. Most Americans still believe in freedom of speech, and if you disagree with me, we can still have lunch together. It's not a sum-zero game where it's my way or the highway, and you have to be 100% wrong and have to be 100% right. Rational thinking Americans, and I would say most of America is that way. We're just hearing from a mob at this point.
And the media is really ratcheting the mob's voices, though. I agree with you that most Americans, right, are sane still, and you can have lunch and disagree courteously with those who think different politically, but the media really ratchets up the rhetoric and creates a firestorm. So if you're watching at home, you think all of America is burning right now, including corporations.
Well, after the past 4 years, who really believes the media, right? So I don't think that means much. Americans, by and large, don't trust the media, don't believe the media. This is not the Walter Cronkite days. We're skeptical of virtually everything, and even now, even with the proof and the scientific background and data on vaccines, I read somewhere that 30% of Americans still don't want to get vaccines. That's not a good culture to be in. where they're so distrustful of a government, so distrustful of scientific data. That's a society we've built over the past 20 or so years. There has to be a reset somewhere.
When you look around at the corporate landscape right now, do you see any companies that are doing it right, resisting the mob, wokeism, that kind of thing?
Well, I saw one recently. They were pretty vocal about it. It was a Silicon Valley company. The CEO, this is Basecamp, rejected wokeism in the workplace, which was a smart business move. Business is hard enough as it is, and to have all these distractions of politics and societal discussion in the workplace, it just creates another barrier, another hurdle that you have to overcome in business. So I think they made a very good business move. And I saw, I don't know, anecdotally or whatever, that a third of their people are leaving and finding other jobs. So go find other jobs. It's a free country. You can do what you want. If you don't agree with the policies of the company, leave. But I don't, the companies that do come out, like, I don't know, I can't even think of that many that did, gained.
Yeah.
I remember Goya Foods, we're sticking with President Trump. Their sales increased because of they stuck for certain values.
Yeah, I actually think it would be a smart marketing move right now for a company to just come out and claim to be the anti-woke and just position themselves along those lines. I think Americans are ready to buy from people like that.
Perhaps, but think about this. If you were the CEO, are you willing to take that risk? And if you're wrong, how do you answer your board of directors when you have people picketing in front of your corporate offices or boycotting your stores or putting over social media? Is it worth it? Now, I'm not saying we don't stand up to bullies, and that's what wokeism is. It's bullyism. It's a cancel culture of censorship. Let's forget about all these fancy words. It's basically bullies trying to censor not only what we say, but what we should even see. They are the keepers of all that is good, and they'll tell us what is good or bad and what we should say, shouldn't say, what we should say, should say. That's exactly the way I see it. That's what that is. So when you're in a culture like that, there has to be some point in time where Americans say enough, just enough. And if you're a CEO who is sitting in the corporate suite, are you going to take the risk? Are you willing to take the risk to say, oh, this is the enough point? Because business is still good. Why risk it? Why risk it? There will be a point. I don't think corporate America is going to take the lead. Corporate America will follow.
Yeah, you would certainly set yourself in the sights, in the targets of the movement if you did something like that. I agree with you there. Just last question, Charles. So people watching this, people getting angry at the corporate culture of wokeism and so forth, what would be your best advice for them now?
Well, best advice, first of all, don't be so angry. America's a great country. Americans are the greatest people. You just see that flag flying in any country that you're ever visiting. It represents freedom. It represents opportunity. It still does. Every morning you wake up and get out of bed and you're living in this country and you're a citizen. It should be a happy day. The sun should always be shining. So number two, when you see situations with these kind of things play out, don't get so crazy. Support companies that you feel support people who are being attacked. Go to whatever you can do, support them. If you don't agree with the companies that are quoting Coca-Cola, don't drink their products, but let them know about it. Just don't buy. I'm not going to buy a six-pack. Call up the switchboard. I think they still have those. Call the switchboard and say, I disagree with this policy. One person doesn't mean much, but tens of thousands of people doing it, they will listen. They still have to answer the shareholders. That's what we should be doing. So don't get angry and don't get even. Basically exercise your right to do exactly what wokeism is trying to make you not do, which is free speech, is to state your opinion and stand by it. Why can't we do that? That doesn't take much.
The cooler head approach. I like that, Charles. Thank you. And you know what? Thank you for this chat. I really appreciated talking about the woke corporate culture from an optimistic point of view for once. It was great having you on Bold and Blunt.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Charles Mizrahi. Check him out, alpha investor, host of the Charles Mizrahi Show. Courteous, very courteous, cooler head approach to voicing dissent, voicing complaints. Isn't that a novelty in this day and age? Miss Manners would be proud, and we could all use a little bit more Miss Manners etiquette these days, yes? So let's try and be sane in our dissent. Let's try and be sane in our complaints. Thank you for listening. Tune in next time, and in the meanwhile, don't forget, stay blunt, stay bold.